Welcome back. We're on episode number 7 of our series Practice Makes Progress, where we're talking about spiritual practices. Today we're going to talk about love, joy, and gratitude. Can't combine those all into one word. Now, we did a big series last half of last year and the beginning of this year called Thriving in Community. And it was about particularly love and joy was a significant part of that. And
gratitude played a huge role, especially in the understanding of joy, too. So.
Correct, yes. And we did a deep dive on those practices in that series. So if you're wanting more information, that's a good place to start. You can access that through our YouTube channels. But today we're just going to do an overview of love and joy working together and gratitude as a practice of joy.
Right.
Okay.
Let's go.
So these practices are similar, and I would even say they're interrelated. So joy is a foundational emotion that our brains are wired to be fueled by. So there are many joy practices we're going to talk about today, including gratitude. And as you said, joy. Mm-hmm. Gratitude is a joy practice.
It is. Yeah.
So we also learned in our series that joy is relational. So it needs to be experienced with other people. And it's important to note that joy is dependent on people loving us. So it isn't just any old person. It's meant to be experienced with people who love us, which is different from happiness, which is circumstantial, based on specific circumstances like receiving gifts or good news or winning a lottery. Those are circumstances which might cause you to be happy.
Right.
So we can see the joy hardwired into our brains when we see a baby see its mother's face light up, and then it makes the baby smile.
Right.
And it just happens. No one taught the baby to do that. It just happens for the baby. So both the baby and the mother experience joy in that moment. So there's actually a verse in the Bible that is in Numbers that talks about that, where it's God's face smiling down on us.
Shining down.
And it's trying to capture that emotion where we should feel happy because God sees us and smiles, and he makes him feel happy just to look down on us. Now, joy is initially developed in our family of origin. Now, not always or completely. We can see our previous podcast on interior examination. And in our adult lives, it happens with peers, friends, and coworkers. And for followers of Jesus, it's usually a loving church family. So joy is also one of the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22 says, the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, so the first two, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And then the man known in the Bible as the Apostle Paul encouraged people that met in Galatia to practice gratitude in this way. He says, keep your minds thinking about whatever is true, whatever is respected, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever can be loved, and whatever is well thought of. If there's any good and anything good and worth giving thanks for, think about those things. So that gives us a sort of biblical basis for what we're doing. So we're going to divide our joy practices into 4 categories, and these are found in the book, The 4 Habits of Joy-Filled People by Marcus Warner and Chris Corsi. They're calming, appreciating, storytelling, and attacking toxic thoughts.
All right, so we should go into practice 1.
Calming. Again, 3 subcategories here. The first one is breathing. Are you breathing?
Yep. But this is that deliberate breathing. Quite often, one of the things you can practice is what they call the box breathing.
Yep.
So this is the idea of where we would breathe through our nose and exhale through our mouth as you start there. You want to fill your upper chest and then your abdomen.
Yep.
And then again, the box breathing is where basically you breathe in
a rhythm. Yeah.
For 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds.
Yep.
And this is a calming technique.
Yeah. And then if you're a follower of Jesus, that this works regardless whether you're a follower of Jesus or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for us, we can combine it with a prayer. It's an ancient technique called the breath prayer. So while you're breathing in, you could say something like, Jesus is with me always. And then when you're exhaling, say, I have everything I need. So it's 2 parts of a statement, and it becomes a prayer as you practice the breathing, and it has a calming effect.
Right.
The next one is more related to when you're or in dealing with big emotions. So we're going to practice feeling one of the big emotions in our body without the presence of a trigger. So we're purposely trying to be angry or sad or anxious.
Right.
And then we're going to practice quieting that emotion. So eventually we're hoping it's going to become automatic and reflexive, so when we are triggered. So it works like this. If we'll just take anger as an example. So we're going to kind of flare your nostrils and take the Hulk pose and maybe growl if that makes you feel angry. We're going to hold it for a second or two and then notice how you feel in your body. Do you sense the anger? And remember, it might not come easily the first time you try it. Mm-hmm. It might even help to remember a time when you were actually angry. But be careful. Pick something that wasn't a case where you flew off the handle and were not able to recover. Maybe something where you're a little less angry. And then just try and let it go. Relax your arms, give them a little shake, take some deep breaths for a couple of minutes, and you should feel the emotion subside.
What's really great about this too, especially as we, and this can be really related to self-examination and stuff like that. But as you feel like, when we use anger, you might feel, as you mentioned, like a part of your body that sort of does it. Like I know for me, my eyebrows will get tensed and so you start to realize, and what happens is that it helps you aware how to get back to it, but also can tell you like, oh, I'm feeling angry, because you're being more aware of what your body does in that moment, to allow for the release of, okay, I'm not going to let this overrun me now.
Yeah. And then you can repeat that a few times, which is sort of practicing, which is the practice. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully when anger does happen, now just a caution here, if you feel triggered, stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's no point in going into something that triggers you. Another way to calm yourself is try and soothe your senses. So this is something you do that's physical to get control of your body and is a response to your emotions. So this might be just removing yourself from the trigger. Go for a walk, go to the bathroom and splash cold water in your face, or take a shower, rub your arms from top to bottom. Some people find that very calming. Go for a workout at the gym, snuggle in a chair with a weighted blanket. You probably have a go-to that you might think of when I say, well, way to soothe yourself. And so this is just, again, the three things in calming are breathing, exaggerating the feeling or emotion, and soothing your senses. On to practice number 2, which is appreciating. Again, we're going to do it into 4 subcategories here. The first one is gratitude and memories. So gratitude we're going to define as being thankful for something in the present.
Right.
It can be anything in your present situation that's worth appreciating. A cup of coffee, a sunrise, or I know my wife puts peanuts out on our deck and the blue jays come down. I really like that. It's a very nice memory for me in the morning. So just take a moment, notice your surroundings, and then just be thankful for that something or someone.
Right.
And again, closely related to this is the memories aspect of it. Now, this is thankful for something joyful that has happened in the past. And it can be recalled when looking at a picture, or we're going to encourage you to make a list. And even if something happened in the present, it can become a memory to be thankful for later. I think it's natural for us to focus on the bad things that have happened in our life.
Very easily to do that.
And we can learn to practice good or joyful things, and it totally, I found, increases your capacity for joy.
Well, it's again, it's the whole idea of if we practice it intentionally.
Yep.
And more, like anything we can do, the more you practice something again intentionally, you kind of start to do it more naturally.
Yep.
And I relate it to playing guitar. First time you're sitting on the guitar, you're glued, your hand so glued to what you're, especially if you're right-handed and you use your fret with your left hand, you're falling. After a while, your muscle memory kicks in because you're so used to it, and you kind of you still look from time to time, but it just becomes a little bit more noticeable. And this is the same thing when it comes to kind of this gratitude, or especially we teach ourselves some memory, the good memories, is that we become more naturally going to that as opposed to going to the very
Hence
natural.
The name of our series, Practice Makes Progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so again, we're going to encourage you to make a list. And then again, write on your list there's something you're thankful for in the present or past. Give it a name. So morning coffee. If you have a picture or take a picture, put it on the list. I use my phone for this. I've got about 20 different things now that I keep adding to it as time goes on. Write down why you were thankful, and then how you were feeling in your body. So that felt the warm sun on my face, or the coffee felt warm in my hands, or the breeze felt cooler, or the apple tasted sweet, those kind of things. And then just think about what God might be saying to you in that moment. I love you, or I'm taking care of you, or I made this for you to enjoy it. Those kind of things. So that's gratitude and memories. And closely related to that is also anticipation. So sometimes, let's define it first. Anticipation is actually feeling joy or being thankful for something in the future that hasn't happened yet. So again, this could be meeting with a loved one or friend. So you got something on the calendar and meet with somebody, and you know it's coming up. A sporting event or a TV show that you like, that you know happens on, and I hate event television. Just a gripe. Anyway, I'd rather binge. But I know on Tuesday nights I like to watch a particular show, so then I look forward to that. Going to the movies or playing VR with friends or a date night, whatever it is that you're anticipating or looking forward to, good places to put it on your calendar. And then once the event happens, you might even include it in your appreciation list.
I think that's a really good point, because we don't, I think, at least I haven't before sort of diving into some of this to really see the value of the anticipation.
Yeah.
Like it's so much about the thing.
Yeah.
And there's something really cool that you can enjoy what you are going to one day enjoy, or whatever that is. And I think that's such a great addition to it.
Now, just a note here, plans don't always work out the way we expect them to.
Absolutely.
So it could be sometimes, your friend doesn't show up, or somebody gets sick, or
something gets canceled, whatever.
You can be disappointed, maybe even crushed. But that shouldn't stop us from making plans for joy and anticipating, because according to the research that Marcus Warner and Chris Corsi did, there's often as much or even more joy in the anticipation of what's coming than in the event itself. So let's not rob ourselves of the joy of anticipating it.
Absolutely.
The next one is experiences. So this is something where you might be creative, like you like to play music, or something active like a sport, or literally it's anything you enjoy doing that's an experience. So some examples are like, I don't know, hiking, sewing, woodworking, playing hockey, decorating, making music, whatever kind of thing that experience that brings you joy.
Yep.
Again, we can tie this with anticipation. So if you plan to do something on a regular basis during the week that you know is going to bring you joy, you can anticipate it when even though it hasn't happened yet. And then this is also a great note from the book. Maybe invite someone to share the activity with you. Invite them to join you. They claim that, and I believe it's true, joy doesn't get diminished or depleted when you share it. It actually grows.
Absolutely, it does.
This next one took me by surprise a little bit, that they would include it here, and it's actually singing. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be you singing with your own voice, especially if you're embarrassed to do that in front of people. It's more like likely you can find something that you could listen to and maybe sing along.
Yeah.
Most of us do that. So I think this practice is easy to do. Make a music playlist.
Yep.
And label them. I have a morning playlist. I have another sort of joy playlist. So if I'm having a bad day or I'm feeling down, I put on my boost of joy playlist. Again, it's we can include songs that are familiar. I find it's always helpful to try something new as well. I mean, I always have my favorites. Never going to give those up. But sometimes it's just good to shake it up a little bit and maybe try a new genre or an artist you've never heard before. And then if you're in the car by yourself or in the shower or alone, or even my wife kind of makes fun of me now because I would never sing before. And so I'll quite often go down, put my morning list on and empty the dishwasher and stuff. And before she comes down, she'll sometimes make fun of me because the way I was singing. But it does add a lot of joy to my morning. So I would also suggest that, I know some people they only listen to worship music, and I like a broad range of music.
Yep.
I think there's value in all kinds of music, but I do think music that is specifically designed to help us worship is valuable.
Absolutely. Well, the third practice is storytelling. And so this is more about recalling an emotional moment.
Yeah.
And this is kind of going back to the idea of joy, the idea of like coming back to a joyful place or state. Yep. From, especially when we're experiencing one of those big emotions. Again, example would be anger, sadness, shame, things like that. And there's three kinds of stories that we can tell, and we do go more over this in one of our I believe podcasts that we did on joy in the community, the Thriving in Community series. And so there's three kinds of stories, and so we'll just really hit these quickly, where you remained yourself, you remain that baseline, even in spite of the trigger to a big emotion. Mm-hmm. Like you held the line, we'll say. Yep.
What's number two?
Number two is you got triggered, but you were able to return to joy. So maybe there's kind of a quick moment there, but somehow you just you were able to kind of catch yourself, and you return to that baseline, to that place of joy very quickly. The number three is you got triggered and you didn't return to a place of joy, at least not easily or quickly. And this is kind of, so we're telling our stories of those times when those happen, because we're reminding ourselves, and even just great, cool, I came back to that, or I didn't go there, and remind ourselves. The third one's a little different because we're telling ourselves a story in the way of a do-over. So we are telling us a story. We're not denying what actually happened. Mm-hmm. So it's really important. We're not sitting there like, hey, that never happened.
Yep.
No, I actually handled that really well. No, we're realizing the reality of the moment. But we're telling a story to ourselves of how, in that same situation, could I have done it better?
Yep.
How could I remain myself? And we start to tell our story, retelling the story of how, if I could have a do-over, this is what I would like to do. And the idea is that we start to learn from that story, and that if we do have a moment where something similar happens, hopefully the outcome will be more like the other stories where we're able to remain in joy or come back to it a lot quicker.
Yeah, and this is actually a little more detail into what we actually mentioned in the end of the previous podcast, in where we in the healing part of recovering from in something that has come out of interior examination, a trauma or whatever, and quite often this fits in there. By telling ourselves these stories, it's part of the healing process.
It is.
Particularly the part where how we would do it differently next time.
Yep.
And especially in light of what, as followers of Jesus, the gospel or Jesus can do for us in those situations. So when telling a story, we're just going to go over the components of a story quickly. So one, the setting, where were you when this is happening? Who was with you? Then next, what is it that triggered the emotion? Mm-hmm. So write down what the trigger was. And for me, I do this I don't write it out longhand. I do it sort of in bullets.
Right.
So then I can retell the story. And sometimes even as I retell the story, I'll remember different things.
Sure.
And then give the emotion a name. So explain what you were feeling, but also give it a name. Try and identify what it is. Was it anger? Was it anxiety? Was it sadness? And then explain it with words, and also the nonverbal body language you mentioned before. Your eyebrows when you're angry.
Yep.
That's a noticeable thing for you. And so, again, in the moment, you might not realize you're angry, but you feel it in your eyebrows, and that can be the thing that reminds you.
Absolutely.
And then make your point. Explain how you acted like yourself, or how you recovered, and include any practices or habits that you use to return to joy. Some of the ones we talked about, calming or soothing your senses. And then what lesson you learned and what you would do differently next time. Again, these are stories that, one, we can tell ourselves, but they're also helpful in our families, I think, helping our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
They often have to learn to process their big emotions, and having a story to tell about yourself to them will, I think, help them remember and how to process their own.
And we'll move on to practice 4, which is kind of our last practice of this thing, but attacking toxic thoughts.
Sure. So Dr. Daniel Amen calls the flood of thoughts that accompany our emotions ANT, or ants, automatic negative thoughts, because our mind usually goes to a negative thing immediately. And my mind is terrible for this.
Yep, mine
Something
too.
will happen, and I can come up with 500 things, bad things that are going to happen because of this. So then he uses a metaphor of training your brain to be an anteater to get rid of the ants by replacing them with positive thoughts or good thoughts. So example, I'm a failure is replaced with what can I learn from what just happened?
Right.
John Acuff in his book Soundtracks talks about this very idea, and he suggests being proactive. So he suggests collecting a series of about 10 positive thoughts and adjusting them over time, because people change in different stages of life and all that, and speaking them to yourself out loud in the mirror every day, in the morning and the evening. So some suggestions that he has, and some that I've learned to use myself, are just a few here. Today is brand new, and so is tomorrow. The future's not written yet. I've got a gift worth giving. Winning is contagious. When I help others win, I win too. The best response to obstacles is to just do it anyway. It is easier to stay well than to get well. I don't like that one very much, because it means I have to be careful of what I'm doing in the moment.
Yeah, fair enough.
Especially when I'm eating. One about fear. Scared is how I'm feeling, but brave is what I'm doing.
Oh.
So again, it's dealing with an emotion with a positive, and in this case, even a biblical spin, and ask for what I need, but offer what I can. And I like the reciprocity of that one, in that too often we're embarrassed to ask for something when we need it, but we're just as reluctant to offer something when we can. And so I think those are just a few ideas of what we can do to combat our toxic thoughts.
Well, some of these practices might be easier depending on the person, and start. This is I think the best way. We encourage you to start some of these practices. Start with the one that's easiest for you.
Sure.
And then just try to add it into a regular rhythm of life.
Yep.
Like I know for me, just adding a gratitude, just taking a moment to just at the end of the day, just to recall that was a great way for me to start. It didn't take a lot of time, and it just reminded me of something that happened in the day, and it challenged me to think that way too. And however that looks, find a certain time of the day to do that.
Yeah.
And this doesn't need to be a long, prolonged hours and hours. You can be done in a minute.
Yeah, you can do a lot of these practices in literally minutes.
Yeah, and just just put it on kind of even if you need to set an alarm. Sometimes that's the great thing with these practices.
Yep.
And then what we're doing, you can set an alarm to say, at 9 o'clock or whatever time works for you. I'm just going to take a few minutes to, again, gratitude
until it becomes a habit. And then I think another good note for that is rather than, we see sometimes practices of having to add something to our life.
Yeah.
And a lot of these ones for joy are very easy to do, and they can be combined with other things you already do.
Absolutely.
So you could play music or soundtracks while you drive.
Yep.
You could review your gratitude list while you eat breakfast, which is what I do. So there's lots of ways to combine these practices with other things that you're already doing.
That's right.
And then it's just, again, putting a reminder to actually do it. But then it doesn't seem like, I got to carve out hours of my week in order to do practices, because that's not always the case.
Well, once again, thank you for joining us. We just encourage you, if you are doing one or more of these practices, please keep doing it. Way to go. And if you're challenged in the idea of like, okay, I need to add something, just again, remember, baby steps are great.
Yep.
This is just pick one thing that you think is doable and just sort of add that one thing in your life. And just, again, the whole idea isn't that, joy is going to grow because you added that one thing once. This is the long game. It takes some time. You might have few setbacks. That's okay. Just again, sort of add these places of joy and gratitude and love in your life, where you could find it. Over time, it'll slowly just grow in more benefit. Thank you once again for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.